And welcome back to another episode of Primility Primer, our morning reminder of the power of balancing pride and humility as we go about our daily lives. This is episode number 46. I'm your host, Jared Morris. It's one of the great ironies of the sports world that a lot of times the greatest athletes, the guys who are the most successful, who we might think need coaching the least because they're the best, are often the ones who thirst for it the most. And in many reasons, that's why these are the greatest athletes, right? Because when you combine exceptional natural ability, add it to a great work ethic and a desire to be coached, that's when you get this mixture of greatness that we see in sports. It's the reason why those of us who are sports fans love watching sports. And clearly there are people who just can skate by on natural athletic talent, but these aren't necessarily the people who get the most out of that talent. And one guy in particular who just embodies this as well as anybody is Aaron Rodgers, the current quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And I wrote about him in Monday's newsletter. If you're not on the weekly newsletter, go to primility.com/join and get on that newsletter. Because I was reading an article this past week and stumbled upon a quote from Aaron Rodgers that really sums this up so well. And that quote was, "I desperately want to be coached." And it's an article. I'll link to it in the show notes. If you go to primility.com/show/046, it's an article about how Rodgers has become the most efficient quarterback in the NFL. And for those of you who aren't big football fans, because I know we have an international audience, not all of you are big football fans. When we talk about efficiency for quarterbacks, it's about throwing touchdowns, scoring plays, and not throwing interceptions. So not throwing the ball to the other team. And literally in the entire history of the National Football League, there is no one who has ever been better at this than Rodgers. He's actually thrown 4 times the number of interceptions. He's thrown that many touchdowns. That ratio is huge. And he throws fewer interceptions per pass attempt than anybody. Like basically on every single stat that measures quarterback efficiency, Rodgers is off the charts. Not just number one, he is literally off the charts. And it is due in large part to the primility of Aaron Rodgers, because clearly he is a prideful guy. In fact, early on in his career, some people kind of disliked him because he came across as a little bit arrogant. His confidence has never been in question. But what I think people have seen now as his career has gone on is the humility that he combines with that pride. And that humility really shows in this desire to be coached. And Rodgers has been very fortunate that he has had the same coaching staff virtually his entire career. And that is very helpful. And really, if you think about it, in anything that we do, when we can have stability, have a proven system to be in, and then you combine that again with the talent, with the hard work, with a desire for the coaching, that mixture is going to coalesce together into greatness, which is what we have seen. And it's always interesting when I send out the Monday newsletter to see which ones get the biggest response. And this one had a big response in terms of people emailing me back. And one person emailed me back and said, the reply was very simple. It said, "I desperately want to be coached too." And I was thinking about it when he sent that back, and so do I. And the thing that's interesting about sports and that's interesting about Aaron Rodgers' story is he desperately wants to be coached, but yet he also doesn't have a choice, right? Because in sports, we have coaches. I mean, there is a guy called the coach. When Aaron Rodgers goes to work, he's working with coaches. It's not like he has a choice. So it's certainly good that he has this desperate desire to be coached because he can't get out of it. So it's a natural part of his profession that now he's used to, that he has embraced, that he is clearly, as much as anybody, embraced as a way to get the most out of his ability. But the rest of us, those of us who read the article and see Aaron Rodgers say, "I desperately want to be coached," and we realize how great Rodgers is, and we want to channel some of that for ourselves, how do we do that? Because for many of us in our work infrastructure, or depending on what we do, especially if we're a freelancer or self-employed, we don't have coaches. In some senses, maybe we are the person who is in the position to be coached. But then how do we go and accept and receive coaching ourselves? And so I think, stories like this, and when we look at Primility through the prism of the sports world, and especially when we look at it through this idea of being coachable and wanting coaching, we have to almost take more initiative when we are outside of sports to get this coaching. And that's one of the things I've been thinking about ever since I wrote that newsletter. And so for me, one of the things that I want to do is start to take more advantage of online courses. I've developed and taught online courses. I'm developing a new online course right now. And as I kind of looked at it, I realized I probably haven't gone through and taken as many of these courses as I should. Because really, when it comes to, if you have a desire to receive coaching and you want to do that, online courses are really a great way to do it, to decide on something particular that you want to be coached on, and then go out, seek that information. Then it's just about putting in the time. And I know for me, sometimes just putting something on a to-do list doesn't work. Making a mental note to say, hey, I want to do this doesn't always work. Putting it on my calendar, that works. And so that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. I've got a couple of online courses I want to start going through, put it on my calendar, make it a consistent action, something consistent that I do to improve myself, to take a skill that I want to get better at and improve thanks to the coaching of other people. And then, of course, just really using this as reinforcement to accept the coaching that I will receive just through my normal professional life. Because that's the other thing. We look at this, well, hey, we want to be coached too. We don't know how to do it. Well, I think sometimes, again, it depends on the structure of our work, of our family life, all of those different things. But sometimes there is coaching out there for us if we will listen more, be a little bit more humble, accept constructive criticism from other people. And so that's another way that we can incorporate this into our daily lives and really channel what works for athletes, because it's built into their infrastructure when they open themselves up to receiving it. That's another way that we can apply it to ourselves. So that's what works for me. I'd love to know what works for you. If you like this idea of wanting to be coached and wanting to take a more active role in opening yourself up to coaching, I'd love to know how you do it. Email me, jared@primility.com. You can also go to primility.com/Facebook. We have a growing Facebook group where we discuss some of these topics that are talked about here on Primility Primer. So go to primility.com/Facebook. It's only open to people who listen to Primility Primers because they're the only ones who have the URL. So if you go there, request to be in the group, I will accept you, get in there, and we can discuss. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here for another episode of Primility Primer. Always appreciate your time. We'll be back tomorrow with another one. Until then, stay cognizant of your pride and humility. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Wrist bump.